Right, so in yesterday's video, I was talking about how the encounter between two NI worlds, which is nothing else than the encounter between two NI dominants, once it is looked at not just from the perspective of an NI dominant speaking, having just a casual conversation with another NI dominant, but the unconscious of an NI dominant having an encounter with the unconscious of another NI dominant. That's what I mean by the encounter between two NI worlds. That's what I call the process of NI fusion. Right? It's exciting, it's titillating, but it's also a little bit scary to at least some NI dominant. I say some because I know for a fact that it's not scary to all NI dominants, which is an interesting realization in itself, which would deserve further investigation and certainly will be investigated by me at some point. I happen to be an example of an NI dominant who's never really experienced this fear of engulfment into the world of another NI dominant. Fear of the engulfment that NI fusion seems to announce, seems to foreshadow for some NI dominants. And it's sufficiently common to be taken quite seriously as an authentically NI dominant experience, just because it is not an experience that you will find in every single NI dominant, does not mean that it is not still a quintessentially NI dominant experience, because I rarely ever heard it mentioned by any other type. But I've heard it, my channel allows me, I'm lucky enough that my channel allows me to interact with a lot of NI dominants, so I've been able to never actually, never in Excel sheets or even in writing, just in my head, take mental notes and kind of rough statistics of particular traits and qualities and fears and expectations of other NI dominants, because NI dominants in a sense are my prize topic. That's what I'm the most interested in. And it's certainly something that I've noticed in a big way is this fear of engulfment. Mixed, always blended, it's always ambivalent, blended with excitement, blended with anticipation, blended with exhilaration. And it certainly is tempting to think that fusion equals engulfment, but actually it doesn't happen like that. There is a philosopher called Gadamer, who was in many ways a student of Heidegger, and who liked to talk. I mean, it's not just he just liked to talk. One of his crucial ideas, influential notions, is what he calls the fusion of horizons. So if you take everything that a person has been going through in life, what has happened to them, what they have made happen, all the facts that constitute their past feeding into the present and projecting them toward the future, what you might call, in slightly technical philosophical language, the facticity of a person, that's also something we could call the horizon of a person. The horizon is never just something that is abstractly floating about in the future. It's always a projection from the past through the present into the future. We are beings with history. To think of ourselves as being without history is to negate ourselves, is to forget ourselves. And this is probably one of the strongest critiques you could make against the trend toward transhumanism, for example. But that is leading us astray a little bit. I was saying in my last video that the encounter between two unconsciouses is inevitable when you're engaging with someone beyond the merely shallow, the merely superficial. And when two NI dominants are involved, there is therefore the dynamic interaction between two NI worlds. NI has this quality that it is the genius function, if you like, at recognizing patterns. It forms a pretty efficient geo with SE in that respect. It recognizes patterns. One of the reasons it recognizes patterns so efficiently, of course, is that it also has the best memory of patterns, which brings us back to the video I released not long ago, where I was talking about how the memory of INFJs and INTJs is best described as a memory of patterns. As long as you think about it in terms of memory of facts, you're going to assume your memory is terrible. But if you think about it in terms of memory of patterns, that will significantly shift your perspective. NI recognizes patterns, which is why NI is good at seeing NI in other people, right? Often the difficulty that some NI dominants have identifying other NI dominants, or sometimes even NI in themselves, is less a lack of skill is less an ability that hasn't been honed than the confidence that comes with trusting your judgment, trusting your intuition. It's not enough to be intuitive. It's important that you trust that you are intuitive. Because someone could be very intuitive in potential, but if they don't trust their intuitions, that essentially looks like someone who's not intuitive. And that's something that I want to drive home as well to those of you who think maybe you're not intuitive enough to be an INFJ or an INTJ. Could it be not so much that you're not intuitive, but that you don't have enough confidence to trust your intuition? What I also call letting the guiding hand of NI take care of itself and take care of you by the same token. Let NI do its work. NI takes care of itself. It's hard to trust NI in that way, but that is tantamount to saying it's hard to trust your own intuition. But often people who are in fact NI dominants do not believe they are, or have struggled to believe they are, because deep down, even if they don't completely phrase this to themselves, they don't trust they are intuitive enough. Whereas a lot of the time, it's more the case, more accurately said, that they don't trust their ability to intuit. And of course, we know what happens. In those scenarios, they let usually TI and FE, the functions of judgment, interfere with the unhindered work of NI. That will bring some benefits, but also some drawbacks. Everything has a cost. And usually, when you let FE and TI intervene to a significant extent, you lose some intuitive acuity. You lose some foresight. It's just, that's why you have to make a choice. And why I like to call my work, my framework, my paradigm, I don't want to call it a system because it is not a system as such, existentialism. It's about making choices. This third unconscious, this third NI world that takes place is the result of the fusion of horizons. It's like an overlap between two NI worlds where, if you like, a lot of what the NI world of a particular person what it has in common with the NI world of the other person, it's never going to be the whole thing. Which is also why the fear of engulfment is usually not something, that fear says something, of course. It says something true, of course. But it doesn't say something true about the facts of the situation, about the dynamic. It says something true about the person who feels the fear. And usually, in the vast majority of cases, what it reveals is the person's fear that their ego strength is not strong enough to withstand engulfment. They don't have trust in the resources of their ego to withstand it. Which, by the way, also brings us back to the thematic crisscrossings between NI and psychosis. Metaphorically speaking, of course, not literally speaking, let us always remember that. But there is still a link, because of course the fear of engulfment is the predominant fear of people who have psychosis. And to a significant extent, people who don't have psychosis but have borderline psychologies. There's a reason for that, There's a reason why there is an analogy between NI and those states. Because NI speaks directly to the unconscious. And the unconscious is not too discriminatory in terms of what it wants to absorb. But a person always has a highly individual unconscious, besides the other parts that are less individual. And so there's going to be a link between the NI world of one person and the other person in terms of what patterns are actually mutually held. The rest is safely preserved, and what's connecting is not thereby lost, but it might evolve. And one of the ways in which it evolves is through NI fusion, usually coming up with insights that you didn't have before and that are directly the result of having encountered another NI world. Could come in the form of a new idea. Often it's a new image. It could be a sentence. It could be a picture. It could be an aphorism. It could be a floating idea. It could be something that you can't even put into words, but you just know something has been activated inside you. It's enhancing. It's never depleting. So the fear, again, is not really grounded in fact. It says something about how the NI dominant sees their ego strength. Okay? Give me a like if you enjoyed the video, guys. Let me know what you think. Don't forget, I've written 2 books about the INFJ personality, my favorite personality, might I say, with the INTJ, the NI dominance. The Infinite Soul, INFJ Life in the Modern World, my latest book on the INFJ, on how INFJs can find meaning, purpose, and value in a world that is often seen as hostile, and with reason, by INFJs. If you want to know more, check the link below, as well as the Ecstatic Soul, which is the prequel to the Infinite Soul. A new look at the INFJ personality. That was my first book. You can check the reviews. They might just make you want to read the book. This is the deepest investigation into the nature of the INFJ mind and what it's like to be an INFJ from the perspective of the INFJ that you will find online, simply said. Check the link below if you're interested in the Ecstatic Soul, guys. And as usual, don't forget that I am very much dependent on your kind support to my channel so I can continue producing high quality content for you. My Patreon page is linked below. So have a look. If you would like to consider supporting me for a very small amount, you get access to some pretty cool perks like our Discord server for patrons only. I'm there pretty much every day, so you can interact with me there, as well as some, cool other perks like bonus video contents every 2-3 weeks on a topic of your choosing. Usually I ask my Patreon supporters what's the topic, and whichever is the most popular suggestion is covered by me, usually for pretty decent durations of 20 to 30 minutes. That's the library exclusive to Patreon supporters. So consider it, and I'll talk to you next time, guys. Bye-bye.